From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Ruza-Bianca. What's on tap today, Lu?
Matt, today we're going to talk about something that is ignored by small to medium-sized business owners constantly, and it's of quite some concern. You buy a home, the first thing you do is you get your cable set up, and you call up ADT for security. When you set up a business, you get your Wi-Fi set up, and you totally ignore cyber threats and cybersecurity. And in 2023, this is a huge concern for small to medium-sized business owners. So to walk us through the trials and tribulations of cybersecurity, Scott McCrady, welcome to the podcast. Tell us, how can you package these type of services that you've normally in your career dealt with Fortune 500 companies and huge companies? How can you whittle that down to the mid-market so that it's accessible for guys like me, Matt, and our house?
Perfect. Afternoon, gentlemen. Hope everyone is doing well, and howdy to the audience. Happy to talk cybersecurity. Obviously, we live and breathe it on a daily basis, but you all bring up something that's really interesting, which is small, medium enterprises, right? Small, medium businesses. Most people out there, when they think cybersecurity, they really think, Goldman Sachs, Lowe's, AT&T, these big, massive, huge companies. And one of the things that's changed a lot in the last, call it 3 to 5 years, is the broadening of the capabilities of the attackers to go after small, medium enterprise. And the simplest way to think about this is, if any of you sort of remember any of the old hacker movies where there's a guy in a basement in a hoodie and he's got like 25 screens up in front of him and he's hammering away on the keyboard and he's doing something super cool, very Hollywood. That obviously still happens from a nation state or organized crime standpoint. But what is the real way it works today is think point and click Windows systems. And so if I want to become a hacker, there are literally an entire ecosystem of tools out there that are just point and click. And so the democratization of hacking, if you will, has taken place because the underlying tooling has been turned into a business so that anybody with a minimal amount of technical capabilities can go and get into the game. And, for nefarious reasons and obviously to monetize, they can start making a lot of money. Because of that, the small, medium businesses have become a lot more of a target in the last 3 to 5 years than they were before. And so what you're seeing is a lot of, ransomware and attacks against the small, medium businesses that they're just not really prepared for. And 2, you're starting to finally see the small, medium businesses sort of understand that they do have to have better cybersecurity. So I would say what was maybe met with a little bit of resistance a couple of years ago, it's still, there's a lot of education to be done, but you're starting to see a little bit of that trend change where people realize that they need to up-level their security because the attack landscape is definitely different than it used to be.
Scott, there's not many people servicing the lower end middle market, small lower end middle market, because it's typically just unaffordable for a small business, right? Everybody's cutting things across the board. As important as it is, right? It's one of the first line items to go or not even be looked at for that, budget of that year. So how are you guys combating on that?
No, it's 100% true. If you think about just getting into a small business or starting a business these days, it's significantly easier than when we were all kids because so much of what you need, the infrastructure you need to be successful, is built into a SaaS-based model, right? Into a software subscription-based model. So if you need some compute, 15 years ago we had to go out and buy Dell server or two, and then we'd stand it up. Then we'd buy some software and we put that on there, right? And then we get a marketing platform, we put that on the server, and all of that now is in the cloud and it's all consumption-based, right? So this upfront cost for starting a business is really different now than it was even 10 years ago. The problem with security is, for the most part, is still in that old model, right? So you have to have somebody who's smart about security. Then they have to know which tools to protect an organization. And you've got to get a set of tools. It's like building a fence, right? You got to get, all the different pieces. Then all of them you have to pay up front. Then you have to deploy them. Then you have to manage them, right? And then you have to, when something happens, when something goes boom in the night, you've got to look at it, digest it. So that model is very difficult for small, medium enterprises across the technical components, the people components, the tooling components. And so that's why this reticence and the difficulty for the small, medium businesses to get secure is out there, because the models, for the most part, are really designed for large enterprises, and they're not really designed for the small, medium businesses to, get uptake happening very quickly.
So what is SolCyber doing differently that you guys were able to do this?
So for the small, medium business, we believe that you have to do a couple of things. Now, our model, we think, is sort of inevitable, and we'll talk about the model, but we think that everybody's basically going to be on our model. And what our model is we took all the tools that we used for, the Global 1000. So a lot of these tools are actually very hard to even purchase if you're not over 1,000 employees. They don't sell very easily down there. They're sort of hard to set up sometimes, they're hard to manage, but they're very, very, very sophisticated and very good at finding and stopping, bad actors. What we've done is we've taken those tools, and then we've taken a managed security service, which is the process of using a variety of set of things, right? Monitoring those things, and then letting the customers know when something bad's happening, and then fixing it on their behalf, right? So somebody breaks into an organization, you want to find them, detect them, stop them, and then fix the problem so it doesn't happen again. So we've taken the tools, and then we've taken the implementation and onboarding, and then we've taken the ongoing operations, and then we've taken the detection and the response. We bundled that into a per user per month package. Okay. So as a small, medium enterprise, you can literally just go to SolCyber. Our pricing's on our website. It starts at $57 per user per month, and you're getting best in class tools. I mean, these are literally the things that all the big companies use. Best in class tools. You get them deployed, managed, monitored, the detection and the response. So response in security world is sometimes a fake. It's like sending alerts, right? We're actually talking about people that will actually go stop the problem, hands on keyboard. And then you get all the people, right? So we have a set of people that are very sophisticated when it comes to security that will actually run and manage and detect and respond to all these things. And so that model takes away, you don't have to be an expert in security. You don't have to pay a bunch of money up front. In this ongoing operation, you don't have to take care of the care and feeding. We upgrade it every 6 months, depending on what's happening in the threat landscape. And so we sort of call it a drop-in security program or security program subscription, where you can literally just drop it in and you get everything you need to be secured. And it's so effective. And a lot of people are like, well, Scott, how do you know it works? I'm like, well, believe it or not, we're the only company in the US that's tied into the cyber insurance industry that gets a guaranteed approval. If you're using our foundational coverage, you get a 30 to 40% discount off your policy. And you get what's called an expedited application. And so the cyber insurance industry knows what we do, and more importantly, they know the tools, they know how we operate, and they're willing to put their money behind this. And so we have as again, one of the only third-party validated solutions out there. And so if you're a small, medium enterprise, you basically get to de-risk your technical threat from being breached. You get to de-risk your business threat by getting cyber insurance in place, and you can knock that out sort of in one fell swoop. And that package is really interesting to the small, medium enterprise.
Scott, there's nothing like this out there for the small and medium-sized business owner. Why isn't every small business on your platform? Is it just a matter of getting the word out?
That's a big piece of it. Awareness is they have to be able to find you, right? But two, so when we have two sets of customers. The customer that's like, I know I need to have security and we don't have a lot, they sign up really quickly. The second set of customers is somebody who actually has a really good security program in place, and they'll just come out and say, I've been doing this for 5-6 years. We can't keep up. I have other responsibilities. I have to make sure there's security in the cloud. I've got to make sure our products are secured. And so they want to hand off that program to us. Those customers sign up really quickly. Where we tend to see a lag is when the small, medium enterprise is like, I don't know, I've got some AV. I think that's good enough, right? I think that's sort of sufficient. And in today's world, it's just not. There's a lot of ways that organizations get breached. We really try not to sell on FUD. But to give you an example, 61% of the breaches that happen right now are via what's called harvested credentials, meaning that they're getting a hold of Lou, they're getting a hold of your username and password. They're logging into the system as you, and they're not deploying any malicious code to start with. So now they're sending out emails as you. They're saying wire money as if it's you. They're trying to escalate the privileges as you. And so this process around this maniacal focus on finding a piece of code on a machine while is needed is not the primary vector for the attackers. And so when you get a lot of small, medium businesses, it's so competitive out there. They're just so focused on trying to, stay ahead of their competition that some of the nuances around why you need a comprehensive security is not really high on their priority list.
So, Scott, you had a really successful career. You worked with some of the top companies in the world: IBM, EDS, Symantec, FireEye. You sold one of Dell's divisions through M&A recently in a private equity deal.
Yep.
That's all the corporate lifestyle. What made you want to go off on your own and become an entrepreneur?
Well, the funny part is I got a internship, super lucky break in high school. We did not have a lot of money, to put it mildly. And so I had to fund my own way through the university. And I got a lucky break for an internship opportunity at IBM in Dallas. And then when I came out of university, I got an offer right out of university for EDS. And I joke that I started at the biggest companies and I kept working my way down to smaller companies because I realized that the culture I liked a lot better. And so even at Symantec, we were the only business unit that ran like an independent business. So the MSSP group in Symantec was essentially its own business with its own P&L, and we operated independently. So I stayed there 12 years, but I got to build out Asia Pacific and Japan for them. And then I got to run the whole business, and it was like a general manager or, it's like a mini CEO inside of a larger company. And then I went to FireEye pre-IPO, which was still, pretty small. And so what you realize is that there's a nimbleness that comes with being at a startup or an early stage company. There's a whole bunch of challenges that come with that as well. But I like the innovation. I like the fact that you can really make a difference fast. If something is working, you can double down on it more quickly. If it's not working, you can pivot and make a change. And then I love the cultural aspect. You know everyone. When you're at EDS, IBM, you don't know everybody. So this ability to sort of get everybody on the mission. And I think that's one of the things that's great with SolCyber. And by the way, we're hiring all the time. Business is thankfully good. So, you get to get people that really care about protecting small, medium businesses. It's like people wake up and they're like, this is a big gap. In fact, on my board is General Keith Alexander. He's on two boards. He's on the board of Amazon. He's on my board. Only two boards. He actually started U.S. Cyber Command. And when we go talk to small, medium businesses, they'll say, well, why do we need you or what have you? And one of the things I'll say is General Alexander's viewpoint is he's been trying to protect the U.S. as a entity, right? Companies, government. And his view was we need a lot more help to small, medium businesses, which is one of the main reasons he joined our board is he thinks that we have one of the best chances of really moving the needle on helping to secure those companies. And the reason why that matters is because those companies are really the primary routes into the large organizations. So whether or not you're talking about DoD, whether or not you're talking about the Fortune 500, the supply chain of all of those super large entities are small, medium enterprises, right? And so it's very important to secure that part of the U.S. infrastructure.
Scott, let's try to do a great justice to small business owners in this country. Oftentimes when your home is violated, I'll stick with that analogy earlier, the very next day you call up a security company because you've been violated. You know how it feels like to be violent. But until you have that violation, you live in this, pristine world where everyone is kind and happy and you bake apple pie for your neighbors, right? Can you give us, without being an alarmist, but can you give us some real life case studies on what can happen to a small business owner to hopefully ring a couple of bells out there?
And Lou, it's such a great question, and you're 100% correct, and we all do it. Like, we all go, something happened, and then we're like, oh, well, I wish I'd had protection for that thing. And candidly, it's the single biggest challenge for us in the market is that people don't think it can happen to them. They just don't. I can tell you, I've had just in the past 6 months, a lot of customers. We're talking, more than 3, fewer than a dozen that have been breached while we're talking with them, and they're debating on whether or not they should or shouldn't do something, and they got breached while we're talking to them about helping to secure them. The thing that the business owners I would like to convey to them, again, without this like being doom and gloom, but the process of a breach is a singly unpleasant and potentially devastating experience. I think the stats are, if I remember correctly, over 50% of the organizations that get ransomware are out of business within 2 years. Wow. It's a big problem. The second thing to think about is you are now in a situation where your company is completely unusable, right? So all of a sudden, the widgets you're making, the service you're providing, the data that you're protecting, so whether or not, it doesn't almost matter what you're in. The lifeblood of that company is now held as ransom, right? And so the ransom is either stolen, right, and sold as blackmail, or it's locked up. But either way, you're now in this position. And Lou, the only example I can sort of use, I mean, there's a ton, but one that seems to resonate is it's like getting your car towed or something at like 2 a.m. It's just everything about the process to go get your car is just it just sucks. So it's not just the technical piece. People think, well, I get ransom, it's this technical process, but you've got to now get somebody involved that knows how to talk to the criminals. You've got to figure out how to get payments to international locations. You got to transfer funds. You got to make this hard decision of whether or not you can get your stuff, whether or not you want to let it all go. What happens if it's sold? You got to figure out if there's stuff in there that isn't really things that you can get let out. And so it's not just the technical aspect. It's not just the money. It's an incredibly stressful and unpleasant experience. And most of that can be avoided. I mean, I will never say never that companies get breached, but we make it very, very difficult for organizations to be breached in perpetuity. So on average, when an organization is breached, the bad actors are in the organization for 30 to 45 days, right? So they're just hanging out doing whatever they want to do before they do something bad. And so, in the same way that your car gets picked up by the tow truck, and now you've got this entire go get cash, right? They don't take credit card. Then you got to drive to some unsavory location at 3 a.m, and then you got to get it out of impound. You got to drive home. You got to get somebody to take you there. The whole process, you just want to get ahead of that, right? Pay your $5 valet, as I like to say, and don't worry about parking and it's honestly, it's a great example. So I told somebody once, I said, pay your $5 or $10 for your valet and skip the $300 tow, and that's a very similar feeling that you have with cyber insurance, with cyber programs like us.
Scott, my partner loves to-do lists and punch lists. So for his sake, can you give us a list of a handful of checkpoints that a small business can undertake to try to de-risk their inherent liabilities?
Yeah. So at the very high level, the first thing we talk about is hardening the organization, and that's a very military term. But think of it this way: right? You got people and systems, and so all you're trying to do on the people side is get them to not get tricked by the bad guys as much as possible. And by the way, it's really challenging. You're just trying to narrow the window. You're never going to get to 100%. But you're trying to get them to say, don't click on the fishes, right? Don't go to the website and put your username and password in to things that you shouldn't. So you're just trying to train them up on that. And you're trying to take that target of untrained employees. So you got 50 employees or 75 employees. And you're trying to narrow that down to maybe where only 2 or 3 are fooled, and then you can try to control that. And the same thing with systems, right? Systems have vulnerabilities. Not all of them need to be patched. There are certain critical ones. There's vulnerabilities out there that were fine yesterday, but now all of a sudden there's an attack that exploits those. And so you need to be aware of your systems. So you want to harden your people, harden your systems. Again, that's not super difficult. It's a process, right? It's a plan. You got to have the plan. You got to have the tools. You got to have the people to do it. The second thing I'd say is around, the third piece there is multi-factor authentication. Just turn on your MFA. It's a pain in the butt for most organizations, but you just sort of got to do it. So that sort of takes care of hardening people and hardening systems. Next thing you need to do is when malicious code is dropped on a machine, you need to be able to detect it. So you need a very solid endpoint protection capability. We use a best-in-class tool for that. Again, it's something that large organizations use, but you really need a really good endpoint capability. That's malicious code. And then you need the ability to detect when somebody breaks in via harvested credentials. That means they somehow got a hold of your username and password and they're logged in as you. And so there's some capabilities around that. That's really a major gap in the mid-market because it's kind of hard to do. You've got to have some sort of the ability to tell that somebody's logged in as Scott. If they're logged in at 2 a.m. and they're logged in from Canada, and now they're going to places that Scott doesn't usually go. So you need there's some really clever tools that can help detect some of those things. But those are the 3 areas: harden your people, harden your systems, turn your MFA on, make sure that when malicious code is deployed, you have an ability to detect it and get it out of there. And then you have some level of visibility into if people are logged in as you, that and are acting as you, but they're not actually you. Those are the three major areas.
So how long ago did you start SolCyber?
About 2 years ago. Yep.
Okay. So have you guys grown organically, or have you been looking at any acquisitions? Because I know there's some acquisitions in the space.
Yeah, we do look at acquisitions. We're all organic growth right now. I'm on a consistent set of calls with companies around acquisition. So we're not at all opposed to acquiring organizations to grow. But so far, it's just been organic growth.
So so you guys are 2 years old. You're doing great, hiring right now. Do you have an exit plan in sight? Would you be acquired by another company? Would you like to go public one day? What's the plan that you have in place today? Because we know it's probably not going to be the same plan 2 years from now. But as of today.
I mean, so the MSSP space, and there are quite a few that target the large enterprise, right? And I've got a bunch of friends over that run those companies. So there's a sort of a consistent process, which is the first, call it 3 to 4 years. You just got to build a business, make sure that your approach to the market makes sense, which so far so good on that. Then you have a decision, right? So do you continue to take money, take capital? Can you get to a point where you're cash flow positive? You don't have to, or is there an acquisition by another services provider? So as an MSSP, you tend to be acquired by another service provider. So Mandiant got acquired by Google. Back in the day, ISS got acquired by IBM. And so, that would be a logical outcome. But we look at companies like Arctic Wolf. They're probably going public. They mentioned they were planning on it before this drawdown in the market, a year or so ago, and the Fed, raising rates and all that jazz. So you get to a size, it's probably about a 5-year spot. And then you sort of have a bifurcation moment where you say, okay, do we want to take more funds? Is there an acquisition out there? Or do we make our way towards an IPO?
Matt, wouldn't it be poetic if Scott gets acquired by IBM, where he had an internship a couple of decades ago? Kind of like ties the knot, right? It comes with
that's right, full circle.
No, that's hilarious. Those things usually happen, right? It's all about relationships at the end of the day, and the relationship that you have inside those companies.
And the universe has a good sense of humor. It's funny how things you run away from, you tend to run right back into.
Yeah.
Hey Scott, do you miss the corporate world, like the private jets and the fancy pantries?
I did. That never-ending stream of sparkling water was very, very nice. The corporate jets I was unfortunately unable to partake of on a consistent basis. It's corporate world.
Nice when somebody else is paying the expenses, though. You got it.
Absolutely. I'm a big boat guy, and as everybody knows, boats are just a pit that you pour money into, but they're a blast. But maybe corporate jets are even in a bigger pit.
You're in Dallas?
I am, yeah.
You're based out of Dallas?
Yeah.
What type of boats do you like?
I mean, there's probably no boat out there that I don't enjoy. I've got a friend who owns a 60-foot Viking, which is gorgeous. That's ocean going, obviously. Big fisherman. I'm into wakeboard. I mean, in Dallas, you don't have massive yachts unless you just want to drive it out 5 minutes and park it. But I'm a big wakeboarder, wake surfer, all that stuff. So I'm into those types of boats. And then I got some friends that have the 30-foot sort of runabouts that are very, very convenient to sort of lounge on for the day. And you pull the wakeboard boats up and anchor up, and it's a nice combo, if you will, because they want to wakeboard and jump on ours, and then if you want to have a posh, with refrigerators and all that jazz, you can jump on there. So it's a combination.
You must have had a field day in Sydney, huh?
I told you we need a boat.
You're right.
I'm telling you right now, it is, you know what, Matt, get friends that have boats. And then you can figure out if you want to go through the hassle. They're a blast.
I've been on Luigi for about 2 years for us to go out and get a boat.
Scott, he's nice to have you, Scott. He's trying to lobby me to get a boat, so he has a friend that has a boat.
That's just smart. Luigi. You can't blame him for being smart.
So what's next, Scott? Talk to us. You've done the corporate route. You're now in the midst of building this mini behemoth. Is your on your radar? Is it an exit strategy, or are you so focused with making customers happy on a daily basis you can't even think about that?
So we're doubling the business every quarter right now, and so it's just a crazy time, and we have so much opportunity. It's an untapped market in the mid market. So acquisition truly is way down the track, because there's so much opportunity to go build right now. I mean, we're not even talking about international markets. So we just launched the partnership in Australia, New Zealand market, having some conversations in Europe. So we haven't even touched the international mid markets because there's so much opportunity in the U.S. We've got our first customers down in Latin America. Again, not a target per se, but they just came in through a variety of channels. And so right now it's just heads down, grow get the awareness out there. We had our first couple of customers where we got on the phone with them, and they were talking to a friend, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I heard about SolCyber." So that's sort of a place where you get pretty happy when a customer is talking to somebody else. It was a really cool moment, actually. It was a really cool moment. So we're just really focused on the customers and growing the company and providing a service that really is effective and works well. And we're on to what we call Foundational Coverage 2. So our primary product came out about a year ago. We updated it 6 months in a 1.5 version. We just launched the 2.0 version. We continue to update that every 6 months. So just like any service that you buy, any of the upgrades that we do, we target our upgrades towards if the threat landscape's changed or if the insurance market's changed. So if the insurance companies say, "Hey, we need this thing," and we don't have it, we'll see if we can add it. And if the threat landscape changes, we'll add it. And so we've got another update in another 3 or 4 months on foundational coverage. So it's just, it's a good time.
Scott, I have a feeling this conversation may resonate with small business owners. What is your onboarding process like for a small business?
Super straightforward. As you can imagine, we do it all day, every day. So you get handed off to an onboarding specialist. There's literally a person that you work with. There's a set project plan. Project plan can be seen ahead of time. We tell everybody we're trying to be as transparent as possible. As I said before, our pricing's on our website. We're the only company we know of that actually puts our pricing on our website. So we try to be super transparent. You get handed off to an onboarding specialist. There's a set of tools that we deploy. We will use as little amount of the customer's time as possible. So most of the stuff we can deploy on our own. We may need them to do 1 or 2 things. And then once it's up and running, we have a consistent cadence with them. So they get a weekly report, a monthly report, and a quarterly business review. QBRs with the person. And then it's an ongoing service. So if something happens at 2 a.m, then one of our people will dive into it, check out what's happening, fix the problem where at all possible. I'll let the customer know what was done. And so we have customers that are up and running. We have big customers, like 500 employees that are up and running in like 7 days. But generally speaking, it tends to take about 30 days to get a larger customer. We've got smaller customers in the 50 seat range that are up and running pretty quickly.
Now, how do you guys differentiate if most of the workforce right now is remote, right? And a lot of people tend to use their personal computers and their personal mobile devices and their business devices, right? Can you add that on to personal devices too? Or how does that?
You can. Yep. So as part of the subscription, you get 1.25 deployment allowance. And so we allow for 25% over deployment of the underlying technology, and we'll monitor and secure that as well. So if you have 100 employees, you can deploy it to 125 different devices. And if they need more, if they need another, say they need 150, then we have a separate license. But generally speaking, we have one SKU. Customers don't believe us. It's like literally one SKU. It's like foundational coverage 50 employees, foundation coverage 100 employees. But we can secure other devices. And Matt, you bring up a really good point. Because we were founded recently, we are a very user and identity focused company. So almost every MSSP is what we call a perimeter focused company. So they're looking at the devices around a perimeter of an organization. What we do is we start at the user, the laptop, and the identity, and then work our way back out. So obviously some of our customers have very sophisticated perimeters. Some of them have nothing because they have 150 employees that work from the house. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to, say, hey, Lou's got a problem, right? And this is exactly what's happening with Lou. This is the machine that is happening on, and therefore this is how we fix the problem. What we don't want to do is go, 192.168 is talking to this thing. We're not really sure who 192.168 is, and we think it's happening, but you need to go do these 5 things and let us know. That's sort of a very old model, and a lot of companies still do that. That's not our focus. Our focus is tracking everything back to user and identity. And so it doesn't really matter where the employee is.
Logic would dictate a lot more companies are going to be in a lot more trouble because of the remote worker situation.
Yes.
So I think,
well, it's hard to control it, right? And so the ability to get security deployed at the farthest remote locations is a challenge for companies. And so that leaves a gap. And again, that's sort of the reason why we focus on user and identity as much as we do.
Scott, thanks so much for being here, man. We don't want to take up much more of your time, but we really appreciate the insight into the cybersecurity space. We love everything you guys are doing at SolCyber. Why don't you tell the audience where they can get in touch with you and how they can find out more about SolCyber?
Yeah, perfect. SolCyber.com, SolCyber.com. We track our, obviously, who comes to the website, not the person, but obviously, and everybody lands on the pricing page. So feel free to go check out pricing out there. And then Scott at SolCyber.com if you want to get a hold of me. We're super approachable. The sales team's awesome. We're professionally persistent, but we've been doing this forever. We're trying to find companies that know they need some help. And also, don't forget the cyber insurance piece. If you're really struggling with cyber insurance, 1/3 of companies trying to get their cyber insurance right now are getting rejected. And the price increases are 50 to 100%. And so we can really help you solve both those problems, which is just get a drop-in security program, get it done, get it off your plate, move back onto your day job, and then turn around and get your cyber insurance done. And now you're in a really solid position. And by the way, if you have larger customers as a small company, it's a really huge selling benefit. So a lot of our customers use us to go win contracts with their customers because they have such a good security program in place. It's a really huge benefit. We had a customer the other day that told us they won a massive contract with one of the largest theme park and movie makers because of they had us and allowed them to win a contract really quickly.
That's awesome. Scott, last question before I let you run. What's your favorite hacker movie of all time?
Ooh, the original Hackers was actually, I think it's 80s. Halle Berry is sort of funny. Old school. Swordfish is pretty good. Yeah, it had the Australian guy, Hugh Jackman. I love that scene where he's dancing in front of 15 monitors, which is sort of hilarious. So Swordfish is pretty good. I'm trying to think. There's so many good ones, right? There were a plethora of them sort of in that 80s, 90s genre that are all pretty solid. Trying to think. Those would probably be two of the ones I enjoy. They're a little cultish, if you will, but they're good fun.
Scott, thanks so much for your time. Everybody, that's a wrap. A Liquid Lunch Project. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of The Liquid Lunch Project.